Now, I've heard about some living houses before in horror movies, but never a living village. That's what makes SCP-1135 so interesting. The Oddity did an animation on it we're going to react to it today. Make sure you subscribe to the Oddities channel, guys, and let's get into this reaction.
SCP-1135 refers to an isolated village with an undisclosed name based in rural India. There are currently over 100 private residences within the village, in addition to marketplaces and a Hindu center of worship.
And it's
While
alive?
nothing would appear superficially anomalous about this location out of context, those with a more comprehensive knowledge of the area would immediately notice something was amiss here. The structures are far larger and more technically advanced than is typical for such a rural area. All the buildings in SCP-1135 are equipped with running hot and cold water, electricity, centralized heating, indoor plumbing,
in
and
a
functional
rural
sewage
area,
system, which are atypical for an area expected to be in abject poverty.
Sure.
The roads in and around the village also seem to have been paved with asphalt and concrete, despite them having no known means of establishing this kind of infrastructure in the village.
All right.
Strangely, there doesn't seem to be any kind of power grid or series of generators that would allow for electricity to run to these buildings.
So they're
it's
anomalously
of SCP-1135.
It's anomalously powered too.
As the living village, for reasons you'll soon discover.
All
When
right,
things
that's
really
cool, though.
started to get weird was during the Foundation's investigations into the nature of the buildings themselves. They found that the buildings and all permanent fixtures of the town that weren't placed there by an outside force were filled with living, organic fibers, as though the entire village had an interconnected nervous system. The fibers don't seem to harm the integrity of any of the buildings, and they run at least 3 meters under the ground, where they all connect. It appeared to the Foundation that this network of fibers grew and repaired itself independently, and was somehow drawing nutrients from the soil. The Foundation concluded that the village was a kind of huge living organism, most similar to a kind of fungus. What's truly remarkable about the organic fibers of SCP-1135 is that they are capable of quickly producing a wide variety of both organic and inorganic material around themselves, which is how they produced all the complex structures found around the village.
So it can just generate matter?
The nature of all the buildings in the village means that, if damaged, they can gradually repair themselves over time. And even more fascinating is that new buildings have been known to spring up around the town on occasion, maintaining structural integrity during every phase of the growing process. When space becomes limited, or resources become scarce, fibers within some of the buildings are liable to atrophy. This leads to certain buildings collapsing,
so they die,
and being absorbed back into the ground. SCP-1135 does appear to need some kind of sustenance in order to continue surviving and growing. Like less complex and anomalous fungi, the village absorbs water and nutrients from the surrounding soil. However, it also appears to consume waste left within the boundaries of the village. It will begin to experience a rapid decomposition process as 1135 absorbs its chemical energy. Interestingly, it seems that the waste absorbed by SCP-1135 leaves no unpleasant odor as a byproduct of its decomposition.
That actually
nor
sounds
are there typically any remains left over once the process is complete. The actual nature of this process
we wouldn't need landfills if that was the case,
The Foundation also has no answers as to how SCP-1135 differentiates between waste and non-waste matter. But if SCP-1135 goes for a long period without feeding, it will begin breaking down its own structures for sustenance.
Oh, never mind. That's scary.
Goes both ways. If SCP-1135 is fed enough waste, it will then reconstitute this matter and start creating new structures within the village. Or it will begin improving the structures already present at an increased rate.
Somebody didn't feed the town.
Foundation believes
our house is
dealing
going
with
today.
a relatively harmless anomaly here. This isn't a man-eating
like
location
002,
situation like SCP-002, as the feeding process of SCP-1135 exclusively affects non-living tissues. And even then, only non-living tissues that aren't actively in use. However, the Foundation would soon discover that the village had certain defense mechanisms that could potentially present a real danger to inhabitants and outsiders alike. Like many living creatures, SCP-1135 had evolved certain innate methods of avoiding harm. If humans or other animals cause substantial or repetitive harm to the structures within the village, the anomalous organism begins setting dangerous traps to keep itself safe. On the less lethal end of the spectrum, 1135 would devise pitfalls and caltrops, which are dangerous metal spikes sticking out of the ground. In the event of more severe attacks, though, 1135 has been known to produce elaborate and deadly traps that would indicate complex intelligence in a human. Thankfully, outside of attacks directly on it, SCP-1135 has shown no signs that it wants to harm humans or any other animal.
So it just wants to. It just wants to
completely
peacefully
within 30 to 40 days, as SCP-1135 slips back out of its defensive mode. The village even seems capable of differentiating direct attacks from living beings and indirect damage caused by accident.
So it really is intelligence.
This suggests that SCP-1135 may have higher intelligence than we first thought. But
Maybe
this will require
alien?
further study before we draw any conclusions.
Sure. So how's it contained?
SCP-1135 was first discovered by aid workers assisting development and recovery efforts in the area. While interviewing local people, they said that new buildings had literally just sprung up overnight. There were at least 1,000 residents in the anomalous village when the Foundation
Honey,
first
did you see the new
intervened.
grocery store in town?
Interviewed,
Was that there
the
yesterday?
residents reported that the village had exhibited anomalous qualities for some time before the Foundation arrived. This anomalous behavior began when the village became the site of a sustainable housing development scheme, supposedly created by an organization known as the Mana Charitable Foundation. At the time when SCP-1135 was first discovered, this didn't ring any bells for the Foundation researchers. However,
it's a group of
in the years
interest, though.
since, the Mana Charitable Foundation have proven to be involved in a number of other anomalous causes investigated by the SCP Foundation. The MCF is a group of interest that poses as a charity organization with a particular focus on humanitarian and environmental issues. Its approach to treating these issues, however, is purely anomalous in nature. All residents of the area were expelled and relocated, given Class A and Class B amnestics as well as implanted with false memories. The Foundation also kept a close watch on local aid providers, scoping out any further anomalous activities or ties to the Mana Charitable Foundation. No results
And now
were
they
found
just
for
keep
either.
it
While the activities of
guarded
SCP-1135 have largely remained the same, there has been one strange new development. After a routine observational expedition through the village, several buildings grew what appeared to be working electronic security cameras. These cameras have been observed to track waste disposal and research teams as they move through the village, and to conduct periodic sweeps of the village when undisturbed.
So how's it still creating
where the
waste?
feeds of these cameras are heading, or who could be watching the Foundation's activities.
Do they let
here
people
at any
live there?
moment. And this could constitute a potential security risk in the future.
So
A
the
request
cameras
to
are
destroy
actually
the
linked
cameras
to
has been
something.
submitted to the director of Site-36. As it stands, the answer is currently pending.
That's
While
interesting.
SCP-1135 has shown no active
entity.
attempt to escape, thus not quite earning it the Keter class. The fact that it is still
It's
a developing anomaly with some tricks up its sleeves
Right.
leaves gaps in the Foundation's understanding of it.
Sure.
At least until further research is performed. As a result,
This is weird,
SCP-1135 has earned itself the Euclid Containment Class. SCP-1135 is located within the boundaries of Site-36. And is cordoned
So
off
they
by
made a
a
whole
3-meter
site
tall
for it.
chain link fence, within which is a 4-meter deep moat filled with powerful hydrochloric acid.
Wow.
A layer of impermeable plastic, in hopes of preventing the underground fibers of the village from spreading out beyond its confines.
In hopes.
The area within this perimeter is
it
checked every 3 days by a team of unarmed researchers. These researchers, however, are required to travel in teams, keep a constant visual on each other, and carry two-way radios as a result of SCP-1135's potentially shifting geography. If the village starts to show any hostility whatsoever, the researchers must leave immediately.
Get out.
Only teams of D classes are permitted to enter the village in a 40-day period after this kind of hostility is noted
D classes.
for fear of dangerous traps. 500 kilograms of trash from Site-36 is placed within the confines of SCP-1135 every single day.
The
as a way
garbage
of
from
keeping
another
the
site
anomaly fed
to
and
feed it
maintaining
and
an
keep it
amicable
alive.
relationship with it.
Interesting.
Nobody is permitted to cause any damage to SCP-1135. Unless it's explicitly ordered by the site director of Site-36 in order to prevent a major containment breach. No explosive materials or other items capable of major structural damage to SCP-1135 are permitted within the security perimeter without approval from the site director either. The Living Village may not be one of the most dangerous SCPs.
It
not
sure
by a
is an
long
interesting
shot, in
one,
fact.
though.
But what's so interesting about it is the sheer number of unanswered questions still popping up around it. How intelligent is the village?
True.
Does it fit into some grand plan from the Mana Charitable Foundation? And most interesting of all, who is watching the Foundation?
That's right.
with a strange little security.
That's right. Who's in
Perhaps
charge of
one
the
day we'll
cameras?
find out.
Maybe it is the Mana Foundation. That's really interesting, though. A really neat SCP. Man, this week there's so many different ones. It's not just the boogeyman type monsters, you know, or the big huge threats. These are all really interesting. I hope y'all enjoyed this one today, guys. Make sure to subscribe to The Oddity, as well as check out these videos that I've done that you might like too. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.